Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
It's been more than a decade since the old Narragansett Electric Company was bought by British power giant National Grid, giving the multinational a near monopoly over electricity and gas distribution in the Ocean State. The man in charge of that operation? Timothy Horan, a retired U.S. Army colonel who's been at Grid for 25 years, and he's become a familiar presence on Rhode Islanders' TVs during big storms. Not all those storms have gone well. Grid came under withering criticism for its handling of Tropical Storm Irene in 2011, but more recently the utility won high marks for its work during last month's blizzard. Natural disasters are only the most visible part of Horan's packed portfolio, which also includes infrastructure investments, renewable energy mandates, and regulatory scrutiny. This week on Executive Suite, National Grid Rhode Island President Timothy Horan.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Tim, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I was saying before we started, usually if I'm looking at you, I'm standing on the 15th hour of a snowstorm shift during nonstop coverage, hearing an update on the current situation with the outages.
Right, and well, I welcome the opportunity to be here and talk to everyone here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, and they'll be glad to see you here, not to tell them their power is about to go out for once. So Grid is a big operation in Rhode Island, which I guess won't come as a surprise to people. I looked at some of the numbers: 476,000 electric customers. In 38 of the cities and towns, 250,000 natural gas customers in 33 cities and towns, about 630 employees who live in Rhode Island. How do you see National Grid, sort of its presence in Rhode Island economy, its importance?
Well, we think we're pretty key to the economy here in Rhode Island. We're providing critical services on electric and gas, and our folks are dedicated out there to provide this power and the gas service as best we can and as efficiently as we can to everyone here in Rhode Island. Now,
the first question everyone's going to have when they see a show with the man from National Grid on is to say, what's going to happen with my rates? Let's take that one at a time. On electric rates, are they going up this year? Are they going to change significantly, do you think?
Well, we just went through a rate case really for the gas and electric, and when you look at our portion of the bill, it's roughly 40% of the bill. So that's all the cost to maintain the system, to build the wires, to build the poles, and everything. So we had that go into effect in January and February of this year. So we look for that portion of the bill to be stable going forward. The remainder of the bill is where we go out and seek to buy the power and the gas and so forth. And we constantly look the most efficient way to get that the most cost effectively.
And that's something people might not understand. I was saying to you, I used to cover energy when I was still in the newspaper business, and National Grid just passes, or whatever utility you have at home, just passes along the cost of actually getting the power, how much you pay for the gas or for the solar or whatever.
Really, that came out in the late 90s with restructuring. So you're right, our focus is on the transportation, the maintenance of the system, the transportation of the electricity and gas, and that's what we're really focused on.
So you went to the Public Utilities Commission, as you mentioned, a few months back. They regulate electricity and gas distribution in Rhode Island. And one of the reasons that they had to change the rates was because the rates set a few years ago weren't bringing in enough money to cover the costs to your company of providing service. Why does that happen? Is it unexpected things? Is it how the economy changes? What was driving that?
Well, the real driver for the rate cases for gas and electric, and the first time we had both together working with the division and the commission, the previous cases were back in 2008 and 2009, and as the cost of the business did increase, be it property taxes or things that we have to buy to maintain our system, it was really to recover our costs of running the business.
And how comfortable are you with the rates that were set and that have just gone into effect?
We feel they're the rates that we need to run the system reliably and safely for our customers here in Rhode Island.
Now, natural gas prices, it's been interesting watching the last couple of years. We were talking a decade ago about what direction's everything going to go, and is solar going to end up being much cheaper. Right. Then suddenly, all this discovery of natural gas, shale gas people might have heard about, and we've seen prices come down a lot. How has that lower than expected natural gas price impacted your business?
Well, it's increased the demand for gas services. So with the abundance of supply of gas here in the U.S., compared with importing it from overseas, has created an opportunity for the whole Northeast for more customers to convert to gas. And that's one thing that we've worked on quite a bit. We've seen the numbers increase quite a bit on the gas new services, but also the amount of system that we're replacing and updating and maintaining. And that's really key to our capital plans.
When you and your researchers or the people who work with you look out, do you think this gas boom is going to last a while? Do you think we're going to have lower prices than we were expecting a decade ago for quite a bit longer?
We see it in the next few years. You know, there is the supply here in the U.S. Some of the states have opened up the shale gas. Others have not as of yet. So when you look at the whole Northeast, it is creating a greater demand, and we see those prices staying there for a little bit longer.
One of the other things, I was looking through what you've been talking with the Public Utilities Commission about, your energy efficiency plan for 2013. Yes. $90 million in Rhode Island National Grid's going to spend on efficiency measures. People at home might think, why does Grid want us to be efficient? They must want us to use as much power and gas as we possibly can. What's driving that?
Well, we think it's the right thing to do. If you look at our history here in Rhode Island, we've been involved in the energy efficiency programs for over 25 years. The programs have progressed, the state-of-the-art technology, and these are programs for the individual homeowners, for gas and electric, with audits and insulation and all, windows and all those type of things, up to the complex industrial customers. So the programs are really for every aspect of our business here in Rhode Island, every customer. They're good for homeowners to reduce their bills, and also for businesses. So we're trying to be as cost effective as we can with those programs.
What are the most popular energy efficiency programs, or the most widely used ones that you see people tapping into?
Well, quite a bit is around the new lighting, new air conditioning systems. Those are in the residential areas. A lot of the commercial processes that customers use, the large industrial ones, we're seeing those increase. So it's really where you think the high use at parts of people's bills, and that's where we see.
Another reason I know efficiency gets promoted is to make sure we have enough energy and we're not using more than we can afford to on the electricity and gas side. When you look out, do you think we're going to have enough supply, particularly on the power side, to make sure we can keep the lights on?
Well, that's one thing. We work with the independent system operator, ISO New England. So ISO New England manages the whole grid here with New England. So
because obviously the power doesn't stop at the Rhode Island line.
Correct. It doesn't stop at the Rhode Island line, and we'll probably get a chance to talk about some of our enhancements in the system. But it's really, we're looking and working with them to make sure we have the lines to bring the power in. So we see the supply being out there adequately, but it's ISO constantly looking at where the demand is, where the sources need to be. So it's something all the utilities within the region and the states work with ISO on.
We saw, I think, just in the last couple of years, we had the biggest day ever on one of the hot days for electricity use in New England.
The demand in New England is even with all the energy efficiency programs, the demand is growing. People have so many more electronic tools out there, and we see it growing.
Interesting. All right, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the investments Grid is making to try to upgrade the reliability of the electric grid here in Rhode Island. Stick with us. You're watching Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. My guest is National Grid's getting it wrong. National Grid's Rhode Island president. I think you have some in New Hampshire too, don't you?
I do, yes.
Tim Horan, he's here with me now. We're talking about how National Grid is trying to keep the energy supply as it should be in Rhode Island. So your job came about in 2011. Part of why I stumbled there is I was thinking National Grid restructured management to have
Correct.
one person in charge of a geographic area. You got the portfolio for Rhode Island. What was the idea behind that restructuring?
Well, we had gone to a different type of operating model here in the U.S. That focused on our lines of business. So we saw where we really needed to get back with a statewide focus, to work closely with our regulators, with the FERC, the federal regulator that we work with. So we went back to this. My responsibility is Rhode Island and New Hampshire, and it really it makes the most sense. So my team here in Rhode Island, working with the regulators and the commissioners, is focused here in Rhode Island. This is our responsibility, and we feel it's the right model to have going forward.
And you think it's been a success having this focus?
I really do. We do. We see that our interaction with the state officials, the regulators, with the cities and towns, It's much more practical, and it's the way it should be.
And speaking of local engagement, I know is something you've highlighted a lot, and you had to do maybe more than you wanted to after Tropical Storm Irene back in 2011. That was quite a storm. I was covering it here. It was about 237,000 customers, more than half of your Rhode Island customers lost power. People were frustrated. You ended up having to talk with the General Assembly. When you look back, how much of that was just unavoidable because of Irene? How much did you end up seeing things that Grid could do to make the next storm go a little smoother?
Well, Irene was a significant storm. There's no doubt about that. But with any storm, we learn from each one of those. So we saw out of that we needed to refocus some of our areas. When I look at some of the key things that we did, communication is one, not only with the cities and towns, but with the customers and the citizens within the state through the new media, Facebook and Connect and the things that we've set out there. We've worked with that, worked with the state officials, the National Guard, State Police, DOT. We actually have our strike forces that go out there that clear the cities and towns. We learned from that. We have individuals in every city and town, EOC, during these storms, informing them of what's going on.
EOC, Emergency Operations Center.
Emergency Operations Center. Much more direct contact with them. But not only during the storms, we're continually working with cities and towns and groups and agencies throughout the whole year.
And two more significant storms since then. Fewer people lost power. There was Superstorm Sandy last year, and then just now the blizzard. And I've heard, I'm always talking to city and state officials, and they seem pretty pleased with the amount of communication and the steps taken. How did you feel about how those storms went?
We continue to improve. The cities and towns are great to work with, the DPW directors, the EMA directors. When I look at it here in Rhode Island, it's really a team effort, and everyone comes together. When I talk about the strike force, one of the key things we saw in Irene was we had streets blocked by wires and so forth. We moved in these strike forces, so a tree crew, a line crew, overhead line crew, DPW or DOT with the state police or the National Guard. We cleared those streets. We did that at the same time while we were restoring power. So what we try to do out of this is how many things can we do at the same time to restore power as quickly as we can, open the streets. The last storm with Nemo, it was key for the governor to keep people off the streets, to let the plows get out there and let our crews get out there. When you look at 2 feet of snow, our folks and everyone were working in some pretty tough conditions. But the cities and towns, it's key that our working with them, I think, is really paying off.
I had one question on Twitter from one of your customers who wanted me to ask you, should we accept it as a given that we're going to have a couple extended power outages most years going forward?
Well, we continually look to upgrade our system. We monitor the storms and so forth. Obviously, we don't want the outages, but one thing I can say is we prepare for these. We look well in advance with the weather, no matter what time of year it is, and we will continually be prepared to get people back in the event there is power outages.
Sometimes there's talk about burying the power lines. I once asked Senator Jack Reed about it after a storm when we were touring the damage, and he said, Ted, it's just so expensive to do that when we already have the lines up in the air. We have to dig. Is that your take on that, on burying the lines?
Well, that's part of it. I know there was a study back in a few years ago up in New Hampshire that talked about tens of billions of dollars in 30 to 40 years to do that. It's a combination of that. When you look at all the utilities and all the equipment to put underground, it's quite a daunting task. So that's why with the systems that we have up in the air, we're looking to constantly upgrade those.
And I was looking, I was going to ask you about the effort to improve reliability, but I found a bunch of different efforts. A $250 million multi-year Rhode Island reliability project, an interstate reliability project, looked like coming from Massachusetts down to the North Smithfield Power Station,
correct,
then out into Burrillville in Connecticut.
Right.
You also have an annual plan you put in. Give me a sense, what's the big picture view of all these, and what are you trying to do with all that?
Well, when we look at our system, it's transmission, distribution, it's gas. We're constantly seeing where we need to invest to upgrade the systems, not only to bring more power into the area, but also to harden the system for storms and so forth. So one major transmission project was over 20 miles from North Smithfield down into the Cranston area, and also the one you talked about up in the northern part of the state. Those are part of a major ISO New England project with Connecticut, Massachusetts, over $1 billion with all those states to upgrade the transmission system. That allows us to bring more power to the state. When we talk about our distribution, the poles in the streets and our gas system, we're spending over $60 million a year working with the division and the commission on where to invest the dollars the most. Vegetation management and tree trimming is over $8.5 million. We're continuing that, over 1,200 miles a year of maintaining the lines. So we're in every city and town. We have so much infrastructure out there. Hundreds of folks that we have here in the state are constantly upgrading and maintaining the system.
And we have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about that reliability, renewable energy, and your career in the Army. Stick with us. You're watching Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. My guest this week might be a familiar face if you've ever sat by your television set watching Channel 12 waiting to find out if the power was going to go out. Tim Horan, he's Regional President of National Grid, talking about all the investments they're making to keep the lights on in a storm like that. But you've had an interesting career. You got out of college and went into active duty in the Army. You ended up retiring, I think, from the reserves as a colonel. Right. How did that impact your view as now as a leader of an organization? You might not be able to yell at people as much in a drill, but
well, it was quite an opportunity. As you said, out of school, it was 5 years active duty, and then just about another 19 in the reserves here in Rhode Island and Connecticut and Massachusetts. It was quite an experience. I had some unique assignments. One of the unique ones that kind of ties to my work here right now is we were linked up with FEMA. So I was involved in being activated in 9/11. Supporting the armed forces in that, and also in Katrina. So a lot of statewide, U.S.-wide emergencies, and that's really helped me with the company here. When you look at our organization, anytime there's an emergency or a storm, we fall under the incident command system, same as the military, same as the first responders. So there's a lot of similarities there, and myself, along with our experienced folks, and we have other folks with military background here in the company that really help out build up the culture of our business. And
you went into the service, I think, 83. You started
83.
Active duty.
Yes.
Those were difficult years in some ways in the military. After Vietnam, before Persian Gulf War, 9/11. What made you decide to join?
Well, it's a little bit of family history. Uncle was a West Point grad, and so I had some family ties, and I was drawn to the military. I was an ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, in college, and it's something I really I enjoyed, and that's why I really went into it.
Now people will understand your good posture at those storm press conferences.
Exactly.
Looking back at your work today with Grid, there are laws in Rhode Island now that you're required to procure some of your energy from renewable sources. Is that happening yet?
It is happening. We're setting up what we call PPAs, Purchase Power Agreements, with various organizations from multiple sources, be it from wind, be it from solar, be it from other sources. So we have part of our group that's constantly looking at what are the best sources out there for renewable, but also we have another part of our organization working to link up and connect any source out there to our system. If you look off of 95 with the Narragansett Bay Commission, with the turbines that they have there, they're connected to our system, so that's another aspect of our business.
And when I was at Providence Business News covering energy, there was a lot of talk about decoupling, which was the idea of decoupling how much power is used from your rates. I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but Governor Kucheri signed that into law in 2010. Has that mattered to you guys? Has it had an impact?
It has had an impact. One thing it really helps us with is really plan for our energy efficiency programs. When we look at decoupling, it covers our costs out there. There aren't any fluctuations, extreme fluctuations with the hot summers or the winters on the bills and what we recover in the costs. So it's really helped us plan for the robust energy efficiency programs that we have.
And that planning, we've alluded to it, but some people may be confused, saying, well, this man, he's head of a private company here, yet obviously it's so important what the commission, the Utilities Commission, decides. How does that work? How do you, being private, but they have so much control? Is it a conversation, would you say? How does that get determined?
Well, it's part of the regulatory process. So the division led by Tom Ahern, we work closely with his organization on the rates, on the capital programs, on the energy efficiency programs, along with other organizations. And really, we determine and devise these plans and go before the commissioners. So there's 3 commissioners, Chairman Germani, Commissioner Roberti, and Bray, and we present to them what we feel is the right program and what we should be doing in these respective areas. And independently, they determine what is, if they'll approve our plans or if they won't. So it's part of the regulatory process. It's a very direct and open process here in Rhode Island. And that's similar to most states.
And there's a massive amount of information if people want to know more on the PUC website there.
Right.
Grid's also involved, and I hadn't thought of this until recently, in the 195 redevelopment, which is constantly coming up here on this show, because obviously that land was highway. You didn't have any power lines under there. What's Grid's involvement going to be as that redevelopment moves forward?
Well, we're closely aligned with DOT. So there's, the bottom line is we're going to build our gas and electric system in advance of the work with DOT. So what our plan is here, and actually working with the Division and Commission to have the right structure in place, build the facilities and utilities prior to the development taking place. So once the new streets are put in place and any other adjustments we have to make, it'll be final coded, it'll be done. We'll be ready for any business or corporation that moves in there. They'll be able to get gas and electric service.
Is there a timeline yet on when you think that work will be happening?
One of the sections will be later on this year.
So people will see those out there?
They'll see our crews out there putting in the gas and electric system.
Nobody turned the lights on yet, but...
Not yet, but we'll be ready for it. And what we think, here's an area that's key for economic development for the city, for the state, and we want to be prepared as we are to provide those services.
We only have a little over a minute left, but I did see you left the Army in '88 and joined what was, I believe, New England, what was the old name?
Narragansett Electric.
Narragansett Electric, thank you. And so this is 25 years you've been with National Grid and its predecessors. How much has this industry changed since you joined up?
Well, it's changed drastically. I came into a company that was just electric, just based here in New England. We've grown to the second, third largest utility within the country, but focused in our states. We have almost 8 million customers, gas and electric. We've doubled the size of our gas business. So we've grown quite a bit, and what it's allowed me to do is meet and work with many great employees like we have here in Rhode Island. I've had numerous jobs and responsibilities, which I think has helped me to move into this particular role. So there's quite a few opportunities. It's a great company, and we've got a lot of dedicated employees here in Rhode Island.
All right, well, Tim Horan, that's all the time we have. People are going to hope they don't see you back on their TVs for a while, so that doesn't mean the lights are going to go out.
That's okay.
But thank you for joining me. If you missed any of the show, you can catch this or any other episode on our website, WPRI.com. Just click the on-air section. There's a lot more information on National Grid's website about those energy efficiency programs if you want to look at them for your own home. For everyone here at Channel 12, I'm Ted Nisi. See you next week on Executive Suite.